Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa salim. Nawati ta'alum wa ta'alim, tadhkura wa tazkir wa nafa'a wa intifa' wa lifarata wa listifadah wal hasa ala tamassuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulihi sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam wa du'a ila al-huda wa dalata ala khairi ibtigha wa jalla wa mardatihi wa qurbihi wa thawabihi subhanahu wa ta'ala ma'a lutfin wa afiyatin bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma inna sadaka ilma laduni wa shraba safi adhani wa hab yaghani. Allahumma inna sadaka ilma laduni wa shraba safi adhani wa hab yaghani. Allahumma inna sadaka ilma laduni wa shraba safi adhani wa hab yaghani. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin. Alright, alhamdulillah, we're still on the first method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, which is basically teaching by his beautiful way of life and his sublime character. Right, so this book, it began by informing us, with all the proofs in the Quran and the Sunnah, right, about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, has shown to us that Rasulullah indeed he is the perfect teacher, right, and all of his methods are the best of methods. And mashallah, like it's been, I was talking to one of my students, right, that all of these things has been there for generations, for 1,000 years, more than that, right? All these methods of teaching, methods of parenting, it's been there in the Arabic medium, right? In the Arabic literature, it's been there for more than 1,000 years because it's since Rasulullah some time. Right? Only now is coming into the English literature. Only now is being opened up for the English speaking. But for more than 1,000 years, it's really the scholars and the Muslims of the past. They have been bringing up their children and they've been educating their children with respect to the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not something that is new. Prophetic parenting, it's not new at all. It's something that's been there from the beginning, since Rasul's time. Just that we are latecomers. we are a bit slow in coming to this. So subhanallah, alhamdulillah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed our scholars to translate all these great works. Like in my room, my husband actually he has collected a lot of books written by scholars on raising children, on education, on different parts of life, everything. But it's all in Arabic. All of it. We have entire shelf on tarbiyah. But it's all in Arabic. So much has been written by the scholars of the past. It is like really big scholars of the past, all about teaching and raising and nurturing, all in Arabic. So, like only now, alhamdulillah, we have this book. We have the book we took from before, Maqasid Halaqat. We have Educating Children. All of these books are now coming up. And they're all actually just translations. They're not new stuff. They're all translations, of what has been done by scholars of the past, So it's as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us, in our efforts, in trying to learn the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we have full conviction that his way is the correct way. Because otherwise, if you read stuff online, you read stuff in books, you look through all different types of literature, you find all kinds of things being said. What is the best way to teach? What is the best way to nurture? What is the best way? So many different opinions as to what is the best way to do things, And we know that for as long as it's someone else's opinion, it is subject to being wrong. It is subject to being it's his opinion. So you don't have to agree. It could be wrong, it could be unsuitable, it could be their own perception whatsoever. But when it comes to hadith and the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know it's never wrong. Which is why we take from his way, because we have a full conviction that this way is the way, and no Muslim can argue against this, and you cannot, because the moment you argue against this, then you have disagreed with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you have attributed to Rasulullah something of deficiency in the human sense. Whereas he's the perfect human being. So as believers, we don't at all doubt the ways of Rasulullah at all. We don't doubt it at all. So this hadith, the first hadith we're going to come across, as to his teaching methods, it's one of the best, the hadith that has so many lessons, in it. So here, Muslim Abu Dawud, they narrate on authority of Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu, who said, let me just recite the Arabic again. I know I did it in the last lesson, but I'm just going to do it again for the barakah of the hadith. روى مسلم وأبو داود واللفظ للمسلم عن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله تعالى عنه قال أتانا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في مسجدنا هذا وفي يده عرجون بن طابي فرأى في قبلة المسجد نخامة فحكها بعرجون ثم أقبل علينا فقال أيكم يحب أن يعرض الله عنه قال فخشعنا ثم قال أيكم يحب أن يعرض الله عنه قال فخشعنا ثم قال أيكم يحب أن يعرض الله عنه قلنا لا أينا يا رسول الله قال فإن أحدكم إذا قام يصلي فإن الله تبارك وتعالى قبل وجهه فلا يبصقن قبل وجهه ولا عن يمينه ولا يبصق عن يساره تحت رجله اليسرى فإن عجلت به بادرة فليقل بثوبه هكذا ثم طوى ثوبه بعضه على بعض وفي رواية أبي داود ووضع ثوبه على فيه ثم دلكه ثم قال أروني عبيرا فقام فتى من الحي يشتد إلى أهله فجاء بخلوق في راحته فأخذه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فجعله على رأس العرجون ثم لطخ به على أثر النخامة ثم فقال جابر فمن هنا جعلتم الخلوق في مساجدكم. Right, so here Rasulullah, so this hadith, right, narrated by Muslim and Abu Dawud on the authority of Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu, who said Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to us in this masjid of ours. Right, so Jabir is narrating, right, that Sayyidina Muhammad, right, that they were in the masjid, right, and they were in a gathering, like when they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam enter the masjid. Right, in his hand, he had a stick from this particular tree. Right, this particular tree has, it is basically something that is used, right, to clean. Right, it's a particular plant that they use to actually scrub and clean. Right, and it has a nice smell to it. Right, so they usually use it to clean stuff. Right, so he had a stick, he had this branch with him basically. He had this branch with him. Right, and he came into the masjid. Right, and he saw some mucus in the front wall of the masjid. So he scraped it off with the stick. Okay. Let's pause there for a while. The fact that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came into the masjid with this stick, that tells us that he already saw the mucus from before, right? Because that he came in with a stick. Right? It's not that he happened to come in with a stick. Right? He brought in a stick with him, which means that he was in the mosque from before. He saw the mucus. He went out of the mosque, found this stick that they used to clean, right, that has a nice smell. He came back to the mosque and he cleaned the mucus. Right, so you see, this is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's the leader of the Muslims. Right, he comes into his own mosque, right, whereby he's the Imam. He comes to his own mosque, whereby he's the Imam, and he finds that there is mucus on the wall. Right, so instead of asking who did that, or asking can someone clean that up, or or saying anything, or he didn't even ask someone, can someone get for me a branch from outside? Right? He didn't say anything of that sort. He just got up, he went out by himself. Right? So without saying anything, and see, no one even narrated that he saw it. So which means he saw it and no one saw that he saw it. Right? No one even noticed it from before. So it was against the wall. Maybe no one even noticed the mucus was there, or even if they noticed the mucus was there, they didn't even think that it was a big deal. Right, so basically he was in the mosque and maybe he saw it, right, and no one else bothered about it. And the fact that he could scrape it off, that means it's been there for quite some time. That means it is dry. Right, so that means people might have seen it, and no one bothered. Right? Because no one saw it was a blameworthy thing. Right? No one saw that it was something that you shouldn't do. Maybe they don't know the Sahaba. Right? There's another hadith by Rasulullah SAW. I mentioned that of the bad sins of his ummah, is that there's mucus in the mosque and nobody cleaned it up. Of the sins of the ummah, right? That means of everybody who walked past that mucus, everybody is at fault. Right? Because nobody had the initiative to clean it up. Right? So it's you can't just walk past things. You see it, you have to do something about it, especially in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you honor the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rasulullah that is not a sin, right? But it's considered a blame. It's a blame. The hadith is of his, when Allah said in the hadith, he was shown the deeds of his ummah. And of the simplest of good deeds, he saw somebody removing some bit of harm from the street. And of the simplest of bad deeds, he saw people walking past, right, some mucus in the masjid. Right? So, Allahu Alam whether it's a sin, right, but it's definitely a blame. Right? It's a blame. Right? If you just walk past. Yeah, you should, either you do it or you get someone to do it. You go and for us, you can tell the cleaner. The cleaner's there. Right? At least you tell the cleaner down there got najis and they got some dirt or whatsoever. Can you please clean it up? Right? If you want to, if not you do it yourself. For Rasulullah SAW, it was him himself. Right? So he didn't even go and try to ask someone else to do it. Right? He himself. So the first lesson here we learn as taking from Rasulullah SAW. Right? The first lesson that we learn is The first lesson that we learn, right, is that do it yourself. Right? Do it yourself. Right? Because before you ask anyone else to do it, you have to be someone who does it. Right? So you're not a king, right, sitting around the house and ordering everybody around. Right? And if you want to train your children, then when they're young, do it together. Right? That's the best way to train them. Do it together. So they don't see that you're bossy and you keep bossing them around. Right? But do it together as when they're young. So as they grow older and you allocate duties to them, and you should be allocating duties to your children. You should as they grow older. Right? For me, my parents, since we were young, we will always have a roster. Right? So every day, who does what. And throughout my family, I'm sure everybody has it, right? You all have it, kan? No. It's a roster. So on Mondays, right, who will clean the hall? Who will mop the floor? Who will vacuum? Who will... So we have a roster. So every child has a duty every day that they do. Everybody. Right, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, up Sunday. So who takes the rubbish out? It's like it's everyone there's a roster. Right, this is to make sure that one thing, the children, they feel that you are being fair. And you're not always picking on someone. Right, and as they grow older, you give them in accordance to what they can handle. Right, so and you know what? If you're doing that, right, then you don't really need a helper. I mean, if you're not big enough, right? Thereafter, my auntie, the entire time, my cousins are always, in roster. Right, so today's my turn to vacuum, today's my turn to mop, today's my turn to, whatever they have. And then your own chores you do yourself. And since you're in secondary school, you iron your own clothes. You handle your own self. Right, and that's the way you should be. You shouldn't be someone who's serving them. Right, after a particular age, right, they should be starting to serve themselves and then later on serve you, right, because you are the parent, right. So the thing about Rasulullah is that first thing when he wants to teach, he does it himself first to show how it's done. So how do we clean off mucus? Right, he brought something that was scented, right, to clean off the mucus of the wall. Right, that means he don't use his own hands directly. Right, he used a branch. That was hygiene. And so here in himself, you can see Rasulullah himself is teaching hygiene. You don't just go and use your hands and pick up someone else's filth. Right? Because, disease and, whatsoever. You don't do that. Right? So you bring something else, right, to scrape it off. Right? On top of that, there's a nice smell to it. Right? So you bring something that is scented. Right? So as to honor that part of the masjid, you clean it with something that is scented. Right? So you see, he's doing this in front of the Sahaba. Right, the Sahaba all watching. They saw him go there. He scraped it off, right, which means that it was dry. Right, because hakka means to scratch. Hakka in Arabic means to scratch. So really the word that is being used here is that he scraped it. Right, so it was dry. It's been there for quite some time. Alright. Then now he turns to the Sahaba and he's going to teach a lesson. Right? How does he approach this lesson? Right? Because what's the fault of the Sahaba here? First and foremost, somebody spat, right, in the masjid. That's the first fault. Somebody, whoever it was, spat in the masjid. First fault. Second fault, spat in the direction of the Qibla. Right, so in the Qibla direction, he spat in the masjid. Okay. And the third fault is that nobody saw it as a fault. No one saw it as something that was wrong. Right, so maybe it's the culture of the people that spitting is fine. It's not an issue. Right, so because it's been there for quite some time. And the Sahaba people, like they do gut over their religion. So Rasulullah SAW, he understood that one thing they don't know. Right, so this thing that was done, first and foremost, it was done out of ignorance. It is something that the teacher needs to understand. Right, if something was done knowingly or unknowingly. Right, someone did a wrong thing, does she know she's wrong? Or she does not know that she's wrong? It makes a big difference in how you correct it. Right, if you know, they know that it is wrong and they still do it. Okay, it's different. And Rasulullah, he did, you can see that in the seerah, whereby his way of handling someone who did something wrong and he knows it's wrong is different. Right? And the way he handles someone who did something wrong and he does not know that it's wrong. Right? So when it comes to especially children, I think 90% of the time when they're young, right, below 5 years old, for example, right, even if they know that it's wrong, they forgot that it's wrong. Right? They forgot that it's wrong. They don't know that it's wrong. They know that, oh, this way is still wrong. Right? Like they think, in a different way it was wrong, but this situation in this way is not wrong. Right? They have their ways of thinking. Right? So they don't know. Right? And you always give them the benefit of the doubt. Right? Yeah, teach them, especially below 5. Below 5. I would say be above 5, especially if you said it over and over and over again, and you keep forgetting over and over and over again, right? You still maintain your cool. 7, right? 7 is when you start being hard, right? 7, because how, like, really, especially things that are blatantly wrong, right? Wrong, it's wrong, right? So for example, lying, wrong is wrong, right? Lying is wrong, and they know it's wrong. And that's why they still do it. They know it's wrong. You need to really, really clamp down on it, right? Because you at that age, right? But you don't be so harsh, right? But clamp down. Right? This is not acceptable behavior. It is not, right? They know stealing is wrong. Definitely, they should know stealing is wrong. They should know mocking is wrong. Right? Making fun is wrong. They should know all these things. Right? They should know deceiving is underlying is wrong. Right? So all of these things that if they know, right, then your discipline on them is harsher, right? Because they know what they have done is wrong. But of course, can be forgiven. Now, of course, Allah forgives everything. Allah forgives us of our sins that we do on purpose, right? Allah forgives us of our sins that we know that is wrong, and we still do, right? So here, first thing here, Rasulullah SAW, in the way he was, he knew that this thing was done by someone who did not know that it is wrong. And in fact, not just him, everybody in the majlis didn't know that it's wrong. Which is why the teaching, right, is done generally. You see his questions on, right, it's done generally. It is done hard, right, because the wrongdoing here is serious. It's a serious wrongdoing. Right, so the lesson has to be driven in hard. They cannot forget this lesson. Right? But at the same time, because it was done without knowing that it is wrong, he did not call out who did it. And because nobody removed it, that means everybody know that it was wrong. So everybody can go. So everybody gets reprimanded. Right? Because nobody knew that it was wrong. So everyone gets a lesson. Okay? Right, so he turned to us and he said, is there any one of you who would like Allah to turn away from him? So he begins by saying the consequence. This is one of the methods also, right, of stopping bad behavior. So you see, when you learn about the teaching methods of Rasulullah, we're going to focus a lot on teaching akhlaq. Right, a lot, not specifically subjects, mathematics, science, English, whatsoever, no. Right, we're going a lot on teaching behavior. Because there is nothing more valuable that your child can learn from you than good behavior. Nothing more valuable. Right? All the worldly sciences, they can pick it up on their own also later on. Right? So whether they learn, they can actually just learn it up by themselves. Right? But what is important for you to teach, right, since the time they were born, right, up to and as they grow older, right, is akhlaq. Which is why this entire book will focus a lot on teaching akhlaq. Because people don't know how to teach akhlaq. And the first way to teach akhlaq is to have akhlaq yourself. You must have akhlaq yourself, then you can teach akhlaq. Right? So you yourself, right, don't have bad behavior. So here you see, he turns to them and before he lays the ruling, right, he speaks about the consequence. And the reason why he does that is to show them the gravity of the matter. Right? This is serious situation. You don't spit in the mosque and you don't spit in the way of the Qibla. Right? It is a serious matter. So they don't know, Sahabas they don't know, right? But he's still being hard about it. Right? So for example, like any sin that you know is serious. So for example, if your child, right, I don't know what your child do. If your child play with fire, for example, serious, but they don't know it's wrong. But they're going to burn things with fire. Oh, okay. So now the lesson has to be driven very strongly that you never, ever play with this ever again. Like you cannot touch this ever. Right? Lighter, matchstick, whatsoever, and you're playing with it. Right? You must actually, really, put, really impose on them that this cannot be done ever again. You cannot forget this lesson. Right? So this is one of the things that Rasul did. So the method of doing so is to mention the consequence. So in the situation of the fire, you say, you know what, you could have burnt your hands, you could have burnt the house, you could have burnt, and you should have pictures, of things that have burnt. Right? This is what fire can do. Right? You do not play with fire at all. Right? So like for example, lying. You want to clamp down. Right? So you speak about like all the things about what happens to liars. What happens to them? Right? So you know what? We never lie. We cannot lie, no matter what happens to us. Right? So in a way, so we we need to really stress. Right? Stress onto things that are serious. So Rasulullah, he began the teaching by not correcting the behavior, but he spoke about the consequences. Right? And it shows how serious it is. It says, which of you would like that Allah turn away from him? And that's the question. And it was said in a very firm way. Which of you would like Allah turns away from him? Right? And no one responded. So you see, he didn't even ask who did this. There was no question who did this. Right? What's wrong with you all? Never clean up. Right? Why all of you sit down here and it's up on the wall? How come I must clean it up? Right? Why don't like all of that was already said by him cleaning it up. Was already said because he did it. Right? And they all saw him doing it. They already felt bad that he had to clean up the mucus. Right? They already saw that he was doing it. So he said that. And Sayyidina Jabir says that we all bowed our heads and looked to the ground. Right? We all got scared. They actually got scared. Because you can imagine the teacher comes in and just asks, who did this? Right? The one is asking for who did this. They ask, would something serious like, who would like Allah to turn away from them? Then he asked the question again, is there any of you who would like Allah to turn away from him? And Sayyidina Jabir says, and we all bowed our heads and looked to the ground. And nobody answered. Because they got so scared to answer the question. And the third time Rasulullah asked, is there any one of you who would like that Allah turn away from him? And if Rasulullah asked something 3 times, that means he wants an answer. And he wants them to answer. Even though the answer is obvious. It's a rhetorical question. Of course, nobody lah. Who wants Allah to turn away from them? Right? But he wants them to answer because he wants to drive down the point. Right? So the Sahabas responded, none of us, Ya Rasulullah. No, nobody would like that. Nobody wants that, okay? And nobody wants that Allah turns away from them. So then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when any of you stands to the prayer, so now he's going to explain why this is so wrong. So when any of you stands to the prayer, Allah is in front of him. So therefore, you should never spit to the front because Allah is right in front of you. And that gives us a qa'idah, a principle. And when you pray, in front of you is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't yawn, right, towards the Qibla because Allah is looking at you, right? We all do, a lot of us do it, You don't actually yawn when you're praying because you're facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're in front of a king or a president, will you go, and not even close your mouth, nothing, just open your mouth so wide. We do it all the time when we are praying. And then when in front of like, a principal, even the king, principal of the school, you won't even do that. And you won't even do it in front of like your own friends. You won't like yawn, right? So this is try to stifle it. Stifle. The hadith is yawning is from shaitan. So stifle it. The sunnah of yawning, all yawnings, the sunnah of yawning is that you stifle it. As far as you can stifle. Right? That means you keep your mouth shut and you just let the air come out another way. Right? But if you really, if it overcomes you, before you can stifle it, your mouth begins to open before you notice it, right? Then you take your left hand and you cover over it from the back.
Oh, left hand?
And you cover. Sneezing right hand, sneezing right hand. Achoo. Right hand. Right? Yawning because it's from shaitan, left hand. And yawning is the way by which shaitan comes into you. Right? So left hand, block him out. Right? He cannot come into you. Right? So he is trying to make you yawn so he can run in. So when you're yawning in your prayer, that's his game. Because you're praying. Right? You notice that before you pray, you don't yawn. Then when you pray, you yawn.
Okay, when you're listening to lessons.
Yeah. Suddenly you do a lot of yawning. Yeah, you're yawning. Because he wants to find his way in. So he's going somewhere in your throat or whatever, and he's causing things to happen to make you yawn, so he can run in. Right? So you're supposed to stifle it. You're supposed to tahan and just hold it. If you can't hold it, then left hand out. Right?
When we yawn, do we say anything?
And he said, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." Right? So he runs away. Right? So yawning. So even for babies, when they yawn, you cover their mouths. And you cover their mouths for them with your left hand. You cover their mouths for them with your left hand. And you say, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." Don't just let them yawn like that. Right? If you see it, you quickly cover, right, for them. Okay? You never need a yawning actually. It's a hadith. Yawning is from shaitan. It's a hadith. We always thought, scientifically speaking, they say that your body lacks oxygen because you're tired, so you yawn, so you have more oxygen, kan? That's what science says, right? The hadith says it's from shaitan. Yeah, only sneezing is good. Right? Sneezing is alhamdulillah, right? Other than that, a'udhu billah.
Can I ask?
Coffee, nothing.
In salat, if you sneeze, are you allowed to say alhamdulillah?
And if you say alhamdulillah with the niyat of zikr, you must niyat zikr.
Okay. But if you don't say anything, is it okay? It's also okay, right? Because you're in salat.
And for sneezing, it's only sunnah to say alhamdulillah if you're not sick. That means if you're having a flu, like you don't go the whole day, Right? And they say after the third sneeze, no more. So 1, 2, 3, achoo, choo, choo, hida. If you have like a fit of sneezing, you're not supposed to go alhamdulillah each time. You always wonder that do I do alhamdulillah each time? No, this is the alhamdulillah sneeze is a random sneeze. You're not sick, but something happened, you just randomly sneeze. That's the alhamdulillah sneeze. It's not the sinus sneeze. Not that one.
Then you read what for the sinus one?
Nothing, just the sinus one. Okay, that's one of the things that ulama mentioned. Right, so I used to wonder, if you're having sinus, do you go the whole day doing alhamdulillah? You could go the whole day saying alhamdulillah, it's a zikr for the day. Right, but then your friend who's next to you is always like, Yahamakallah. Because you're not well.
Shaitan will whisper and always make you worse, right? So suddenly you feel like missing weight or whatever. So is that also do we take again, or do we
No.
tahan or
You tahan and you ignore. You tahan and you ignore it, right? Especially if it only happens when you're taking wudu. Like throughout the day, nothing of this happens. When you want to take wudu only, all these things happen. That is a very clear sign in shaitan. It's him, right? For me, like I've been noticing the past few weeks, that whenever I stand to pray, my first rakaat, that I would have like done my istinja, I did my wudu, everything kan, all done. I would stand to pray and I would feel like discharge coming out. I already feel it. And then I'll be like, I just clean myself and everything. But after a while, when I began ignoring it, it stopped. It stopped happening. Because when if I layan, right, and I go to the toilet and I go and check, there's nothing there. But you will feel, you literally feel that there's wetness. You're like so paranoid. So but then when I go and check, there's nothing there. So he can even make you feel that there's wetness. And there's no wetness. I don't know how he does his game.
Yeah.
But he can feel as if there's fluid. But I went there, I would break my prayer and I would go and check and nothing. So usually I ignore, it went away. Because I noticed it will always happen the first rakaat. First rakaat only will happen. Right, so it means there's a pattern there lah. It's a pattern. That means who's the one, who's kerja lah, whose kerja is it? Syaitan. Like, it's his work. It's his work. Alright, so here. Alright. So now he got their attention. By mentioning the consequence of his actions, he got their attention. That's one of the ways of teaching also. You mention the consequence. Before you mention what's wrong, you just mention the consequence and everybody is up. If you say, who of you, when it's go a bit, say, which of you would like to have a palace in paradise? So even before mentioning what is the act to do to get this, you entice them by mentioning what is the reward. Right? Or you frighten them by saying what is the punishment before you even say the act. Right? That is one of the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alright. So now when everybody has affirmed that nobody wants that, Ya Rasulullah, nobody wants to turn away from him. So he says when you're in front of and you're praying, Allah is in front of you, therefore you should not spit to the front nor to the right. So now he gives the hukum. This is the hukum. You cannot spit to the front nor to the right. And then he understands that, but people need to spit. You need to spit. Right? Sometimes you have phlegm coming up. You cannot swallow it back down because it's eating. Right? So your phlegm comes up to your mouth. It's not in your. If it's stuck in your throat, it's okay. You can swallow it back down. If it comes up to your mouth and it's on your tongue area, right, you must spit it out. Because otherwise, if you swallow, you are considered to be someone who has eaten in the prayer, and that will break your prayer. Right? So you coughed up phlegm, right? So now what must you do? You need to throw it out. Alright, so now he's going to give you ways of doing this. Alright, so what's the way? So the first way is that you spit under your left foot. And this is only if you're praying in the masjid whereby the floor is sand. Right, not carpet. You mentioned last week, it's not a carpeted floor, it's a sand floor. Right? So then you can spit like sand. You just wipe over. Right? But if not, you take your clothing, and he even demonstrated, this is another way of teaching. You take your clothing, and he demonstrated, he took his clothing, and you spit into your own clothing, and you wipe it like this, so that it will not drip or anything. Okay, means you that is. This is not considered to be movement because your fingers. So you can do as much as you want. Your finger movement is not movement. Right? Fingers are not movement. So you can like that when you're praying, no problem. Right? Fingers are not movement, eyelids are not movements, tongue not movement, right? Head. Right? If it's too much, then it can be a movement. But if you just like that, it's not a movement. Okay? In your prayer. It's not significant movements. Right? So he demonstrated, he should spit under his left foot. Right? Or if it comes in without forewarning, he should do as follows with his clothes. And then he demonstrated, he took his clothes right onto another, right, and he spat right onto his with his mouth, right, and then he did this, right, and then he said, "Bring me some scent." And now because the boy's looking at him, right, he doesn't leave the place yet because he got their attention, and to teach them lessons. So now he says, bring me some scent. So young boy went off to get some scent from a palm of his hand, right. Then he took it. Right, and then he placed it on the tip of the stick, right, and he scraped the stick on the place where the mucus was, so the sand would remove the dirt. Right, so basically he placed more sand onto the place whereby there was the mucus. So he cleaned it up nicely. So here he shows perfection in your deeds. So not just removing the mucus, but now beautifying the place, right, with good sense. Right, you see, mashallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, and then Jabir says it was from this incident that you people began applying scents in your masajid. It was only from then that the people in the Sahaba began to put scents in their masajid. They would scent the walls. And it is sunnah for you to also scent your places of prayer. So your sajada, you scent the parts whereby you sujud. It's sunnah to scent it. You scent, if you want to take atar, the sunnah is to open your hand like that. Don't do it this way. This is not the sunnah. Sunnah is like that. You open your hand, the atar here, you wipe it, put it on your forehead. Okay? So when you sujud, your hands and your forehead have scent. So when you sujud, it's all scented. Right? You scent your prayer garment. Right? You sense all of these things are called scents. You scent all of these things. You scent your Quran also. You take atar, you wipe on your Quran. Scent it. Right? It's basically the cover lah, the cover of the Quran. Right? So basically or you sense your prayer beads. Right? So whatever is exalted in this religion, you scent it. You put nice scents on it. Right? So it's a way of unless you makan. I actually to encourage kids to use the siwak, because I don't like the smell, I put mint. I put mint so that they like the smell of the siwak. Because sometimes kids like what smell is that? They don't used to the smell of the siwak. So I actually put mint to make them used to it.
Is it better for us if we use mint on our siwak and make siwak?
Not while you're praying.
So you're praying, you should not scent when you're praying, you shouldn't use the siwak that is scented.
Are you using siwak when you're praying?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, before you pray, it's okay. No problem.
Okay. So you have
Unless you're fasting.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're fasting, then no lah. But because before you're praying, you're not praying apa?
I mean, but I was thinking whether we are allowed to have that scent in your mouth when you're praying.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You can have scent. And in fact, that's why siwak is sunnah before prayer. Because you're supposed to clean your mouth before prayer, because you're going to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're not supposed, it's makruh before you pray if you're going to have bad scents in your mouth. Like you have garlic, onion, whatever kan. That is bad adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're speaking with such bad breath. That's why when you wake up from your sleep, right, before you pray, you better wash your mouth. You don't wake up with all the alio and everything, and then you go and take your wudu anyhow, and then you go and pray. That's no adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, so it's sunnah every prayer you wash your mouth, and you brush your teeth every prayer, right? So that you clean your mouth before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sunnah of doing so. Alright, let me just read the footnote. Right, so here the footnote number 1. This act of spitting while in salah and in a masjid is acceptable only if the person performing salah has no other alternative but to do so, and the floor of the masjid is sand, which is now as stone, as was the case with the masjid in the area of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the floor of the masjid is cemented, paved, or laid with something that is tiles or carpets, as in the case of the masjid in present times, the person performing salah should spit onto his clothing or tissue or handkerchief if there is a need. This is because it is incumbent to safeguard the masjid from anything that is dirty, disliked, or filthy. If you are using the masjid's telekung, not your telekung, right? Or you're at someone's house and use their telekung, like the prayer garment, and then you're like, now you have to spit. Do you take the telekung of the masjid? What do you do now? You have to spit, because you don't spit, you can't read thereafter. So you're wearing someone else's telekung, or wearing the masjid's telekung, right? And now you coughed up a phlegm, right? What do? You use the telekung that you're wearing, and then you wash it thereafter. Okay, means after you pray, straight away go to the tap and wash it off, like clean it, and then put atar and whatsoever, right? So don't it's someone else's telekung, what do I do? And you swallow it back. So when you swallow it back, you break your prayer. Okay, you break your prayer, you go and pray again lah. So you do have a choice of,
Can we hold it in? Can we hold it on?
Then how you going to recite Fatihah? If let's say it came out and you have done all the rukun that is oral rukun. So the last oral rukun that you're supposed to do is salawat. So it's really up to the end. Right? It means you must have done all the oral rukun, because the last one is salawat after tashahud, right? So you're doing maybe the du'as and you cough. Okay, maybe at that point you can hold it. And you can't do anything else thereafter. But even then, you need to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. So you really had no choice. Because unless you can say if in your mouth lah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullah, and hold something in your mouth, right? Because the very last rukun is right at the end, so you can't even find a way around this, right? It's not optional. You actually have to remove it lah. Because unless you're so skillful in keeping phlegm and speaking without swallowing the phlegm, if you're good at that.
If let's say you're wearing the telekung kat masjid, right? Then is it possible to like take out the telekung and take your baju inside?
If you can, then it's better, without exposing your aura. Right. So if let's say your sleeves are long, so you lift your sleeves and you use your own sleeve to take out. That's better, right? But if your sleeves are like that and it's exposed, and if you have to do that, you will expose your aura and issues lah. Fikir all semua gone. Right. So
Into our hands, and then after that, underneath the telekung, we wear on our own baju.
you can.
Can, right?
You can. So, but then you must make sure that your wrists are all covered. Right, so you can bring out and split into your flesh, it means your hands lah, right, like that, and then hold it. And actually you can just hold it the whole prayer. You don't have to open up your hands, because even tashahud is sunnah. It's sunnah for tashahud. So if you want, you can hold it. It's gross lah. You can do it this way, as long as one hits the ground. One, it means any part of the hand, right? So yeah. So you're able to do that. Right.
But
If you really want to do this lah, you just lap at your thigh lah sudah. Unless you're at a wedding and you have nice clothes on, you don't want like a huge mucus patch. Allahu Rabbi.
This is from your mouth. But if it's from your nose,
Okay, from your nose, the ruling is from your nose, whatever goes backwards, right, can go down all the way straight. You're not required to pull it out. So that means if you have a runny nose, right, and you get and it goes backwards, you can swallow. No problem. Even fasting, praying, because it's the back track. Right.
if you feel it going to your throat, then okay.
Once you can pull it out, you pull it out. I mean, if it comes into your mouth, but if it goes into your throat, it goes into your throat.
But when it goes into your throat, you have the option to cough it out, but you can just telan.
It's still difficult, right, to cough it out. It's still difficult because it's still inside. It's not on your mouth. It's not like at the point where it can come into your mouth, unless you really like and you pull it out. Right, then you're not supposed to. Right, so if you force it out and it comes out, now you have to throw it out. Right, but if you don't do anything about it, it just flows down. Right, and it's fine. It's not on you to force it out. Yeah. Unless you try, you think that actually it can come out, but when you try to force it, actually you can't bring it out. Able to be so I think I can bring it out, and I try to bring it out, but actually it's just right there. Right, and then you try to pull it out, but it's just right at the edge. But actually, you don't have to bring it out. Right, so that is for, of course, through the front cannot lah. The front you have to wipe it out.
This is the same thing as a food particle in your mouth, right?
Food particle in the mouth, you place it at the tip of your tongue.
And keep it there.
If you want, you can lap on your baju lah. you can wipe it on your clothing. Huh?
So you have it at the tip of your tongue, right? Then can you move it to your mouth?
You can put it on top here. On your lip here.
Really?
Yeah, no problem. Don't eat it. Okay, so here, right, may Allah Ta'ala shower His mercy upon Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, and may he be pleased with him. Consider his piety and consideration for the Masjid. Hafiz Ibn Hajar rahimahullah relates in the biography of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, Muhammad bin Mansur said, we were in the assembly of Abu Abdullah al-Bukhari when a person picked out some dirt from his beard and threw it on the ground. I saw al-Bukhari looking at the dirt and then at the people. When he saw that the people were occupied and not looking at him, he picked up the dirt and placed it in his sleeve. Right, then he left the masjid. I saw him removing it and throwing it aside. from this incident we see how Imam Bukhari rahimahullah protected the masjid from the dirt, which one would protect his beard. And it was a result of his high level of knowledge and practice. So that's Imam Bukhari. So basically a man cleaned his own beard and there was some dirt in there, he threw it on the masjid. Right? And Imam Bukhari picked it up and put it in his own sleeve. Quietly, he didn't even do anything. He was very silent. So someone was observing Imam Bukhari doing it. I said, all the imams are like that. For them, it's just second nature. They see anything dirty, also they pick it up, put it in. And put in their own bag. They put in their own bag, into their own, and later on they throw it away. Right? So, subhanAllah. Right? And we think that, we are all the common people and we are the ones who are like, having them clean up after us. Right? And the Hawaii, all of them, they would clean up after the common person. So they will occupy the place and everything. Then when they leave, right, usually like Habib Omar sitting around behind and he would clean up, wash up, right? They would do it after people. And people all left already. Right, so subhanAllah. Okay, lessons from the Hadith. Number 1, a phrase may be repeated 3 times so that the message is embedded into the hearts of the audience to get attention. Right, so he asks the question 3 times because he wants an answer, right, because for you all to pay attention. Number 2, a practical explanation has a greater impact on the heart of the listener and serves as a clear demonstration of what is being taught. Right, what is being taught. Right, so of course, practical explanation. Right, it means you physically show how to do this. Right, so you give examples. Right, you demonstrate. These are all ways of teaching. Right, so especially good behavior. Right, you teach them what do you say in this circumstance or in this situation? What should you have said to me? And what was better for you to have said? Instead of saying it this way, what was better for you to say instead of that? Right? So if someone was, harsh in the response to you, you could say, you should have said, or you could have said in this way, and that was better for you. Right? Instead of going in this harsh way and speaking about to me about it, especially your children. Right? So when they answer in a very rude way, and they might not realize it's rude because sometimes they're just copying others. Sometimes they're copying older children, they're copying the TV, they're copying cartoons, they're copying other things. So sometimes the way they answer is very rude. And I'll be like, why are you so rude? Right? And you actually don't realize that they actually picked up somebody else and they don't realize that it is wrong. Right? So you must then not let it slide, right? Nor let it pass by. Stop there and say, repeat what you said in this way. Right? And that is actually on you as the parent to teach them how to speak to their parent. This is how you speak to me. I am your mother, right? This is the correct way. So basically, you assist your children in birrul walidain. It means you assist them in having goodness towards you because it's compulsory on them, right, to be good towards you. Right? So you're going to help them. Right? And there's a hadith about Allah whereby Rasulullah says that may Allah have mercy on the parent who assists his child. Right, on birrul walidain, right, on filial piety towards his parents. May Allah have mercy on the parent who assists his child, right, to have goodness towards him. Right, means you make it easy on your child, right, or you teach your child since he's young, right, on how he treats you, right. So you don't hold back to train them. Right, when father comes home, right, go and get water for the father. Father comes home, right, go and like that, you salam the father. Right, you train your children on honoring the parent, and that is then you're doing them a favor lah, right, a favor, and how they can speak with you, right? If like for example, if you catch them lying, or you catch them saying bad words, right? So straight away you must stop there. You cannot allow this to continue. You cannot just like brush it aside and carry on with life. You must stop it because the thing about it is that we need to place bad behavior, right, on the correct scale. It is something heavy. Right, so you don't just brush aside bad words, bad speech, bad behavior. You don't. Right, you need to, when it happens, stop. Right, put aside the situation, just single out the speech. Right, what is wrong with this speech? Right, so just say that if for example if they lied, right, then really and most of us parents we know when our kids lie lah. It's not a big secret. Right, they think you don't know. But then you live long enough to know when they're lying. We're adults, Like I remember this Halil when he was lying at Tarim. Right, who bathed you? Me. Oh, where do you get the shirt from? It's very obvious. Very obvious they're lying, right? Especially 5-year-olds and know that their lies are just you can see right through it. Right, so what do you do when they start doing that? When they start lying? What do you do?
So, it's okay, just tell the truth and we won't get angry. That's what I do, but I don't know if that's right.
First and foremost, right, you need to actually get them to admit that no, this is what actually happened. They must admit themselves. You don't. Okay, one thing you should never do is call them a liar. Never do that. And never label them. You're a liar, right? Or you're lying to me, right? Just relax, chill a bit, and then say, if that's the case, then why will this happen? Basically, you ask more and more questions to the point you know what? You say, and then you say, tell me what really happened. Right? Tell me what really happened. Right? Then they will always cave in lah. They'll cave in eventually. Tell me, I know what really happened. Right? Tell me what really happened. Right? Then they will tell you. Right? And then you gently really enforce with them that I don't like this lying. Right? And really you need to not lie. Stop lying. Right? Lying is really we cannot lie. Prophet said that the believer does not lie. We don't lie. Right? It's something so, and then, of course, if you want to tell them about when I was young, right? I think my grandmother told me, like Isra Mi'raj, whereby the tongue, they pull it out and they cut and they cut and they cut. All people, they love that story. They love that story. Right? Isra Mi'raj, they pull the tongue and they cut and they pull the tongue and they cut and they pull the tongue and cut for the liars. Those who lie. Like, I've not found that hadith actually. I don't know. But since you're young, everyone tells you the liars go through that. They get hung by the tongue and whatever, right? They say all these kind of things. Right? So, you can, tell them that the liars have a very terrible end. Right? So, just to clamp down. Right? If bad speech, right? And sometimes you do notice that they when they imitate either on TV, right, or their older friends, right, they imitate, they do things in a very rude way. And they answer you, like, that's so rude, the way they answered me. Right, you need to stop there, right, and correct it. Right, just rephrase it for them. Right, and say it like this next time. Right, or if they roll their eyes at you, right, oh, don't roll your eyes at your parent, that kind of thing lah. Imagination. If they become stories, it's fine. Right? Lying usually is done in a way, cover up. Right? So there's something wrong, and then they don't want to admit it. That's lying. Right? But like imagination, they playing games and whatsoever, and they imagine. That's.
Tell stories that something really happening to him. I mean, just tell stories. It doesn't make sense. It's really like when he was a babe or something like that. It's happened. So it's like he's telling a story like it has happened.
Maybe it's imagination. Imagination. It's just his own imagination of what happened to him. Maybe it was a dream and he can't distinguish dream from real life. So he's remembering a dream and he thought it really happened. So that one, I mean, if he's not covering up anything or whatsoever, it means he's being confused by his dreams and his real life. So it's not lying, right? Lying usually is because they're covering up what really happened. Yeah. Yeah. Rephrase the question. I mean, they understood. I knew you do it. Ask a different question. The mandi what? I ask you what? Right? Yeah. Because you're not supposed to bathe anybody else. So you say, Orang you mandi, Abang Umar put for you or you put yourself? Abang Umar put for me. So you bathe with him, right? Yes. They're very easy lah to very easy to bring it out. The older ones can be a bit difficult because they keep denying it. They keep denying.
Yeah, really difficult to give you this question. But still, I say no, I don't do it. Then they really do. Because then I didn't throw the car, I didn't throw the car, the truck. Then you know you can do it.
Yeah. playing children. Alright, then he says here, Masjid Muhammad. Alright, the practical, so to demonstrate what is being taught. Right, the sublime humility of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the teacher, is apparent from the fact that he personally scraped off the mucus from the wall of the masjid. Right, it's clear. Right, and people, all human beings from all of all ages, they appreciate humility. When you see somebody has humility in them, right, they are humble, every human being appreciates it. Right? So when you see your own teacher, you know how humble he is, serving, cleaning up, whatsoever, then you will begin to learn, right, from the way they are. Alright. So to verbally denounce evil is established, right? That means so what it means here is nahi anil munkar. Right? It sounds very severe in English. Right? Basically, nahi anil munkar. That's what it means. Right? Nahi anil munkar. That means to stop what is not permissible. Right? So he clearly, outright said it. Right? You're not to do this. It is not allowed in this religion. Right? One must physically remove an evil if he's able to do so. Right? That is from the weakest of iman. Right? The weakest of iman is to hate it. Right? But if you're able to remove it, you must remove it. Right? Whatever is disliked or detested should be removed from the masjid. The masjid should be respected and safeguarded from anything that would make it dirty. Saliva, mucus and phlegm, these are all part of fiqh of masjid. Right? Saliva, mucus and phlegm are pure despite people having an aversion to them. The proof of this is the fact that Rasulullah spat onto his clothing and demonstrated to them what a person should do when he was overcome by mucus, phlegm and has no alternative. Right? So basically they are not najis. Right, you're disgusted by them, right, by these things, right, but they're not najis, right. So you can spit onto your clothing. If you know that you're sick and your phlegm carries blood, then different, That one najis already, right. So there is najis, right. So for you, right, if it's something that is you can't help, because you're very sick. Happened to me before, right, when I was in Tarim and my lungs were like full of like all kinds of things. So I would cough blood. Actually, I did cough blood. Right, so in prayer, what you do is that, right, before the prayer, you wash out as much as you can, right, but you can't control it because you're praying. I'm coughing the entire day, right, every like few minutes cough, because a lot of blood in my lungs. So hold tissue, right, so you're not on your clothes but tissue, right. This is called fiqh of the darurat, basically, right. So only you are allowed, because of your condition. So you cough onto the tissue and you hold, right. You cough and you hold, Right, so you don't do it onto your clothes because it's najis, right, and nor do you swallow it back because it's blood. Right. So I remember I had some lung disease when I was in Darim. Right, so see all the fiqh all come into play. You're made to do everything. Once you have learnt it, right, so you have to know that it's najis. Right, you throw it out. Of course, your mouth is mutanajis, your mouth, right, but it is pardoned because you are sick. Situation. But if you're not sick and like just that you have like a nosebleed, random nosebleed, right, for nosebleed, right, and it's not a sickness. For example, maybe some people just randomly nosebleed kan. So in your praying, right, don't touch it. Let it be, because the moment you touch your nosebleed and you move the blood away onto your hand, then you have moved the blood from its source onto your limb, and now you're carrying najis. Breaks your prayer. So if you have a nosebleed and you sense it, don't do anything. Leave it there. If you want to wipe it, okay, which is actually, even if you wipe it, then now you're carrying najis. Then you want to put najis where? Right. So as far as possible, nosebleed, don't aggravate it, but just let it be. Usually it will just hang there, right? It won't really drip. Okay, if it drips, then because it's not your doing. It's not your doing. As long as you don't do anything. in a way. Right, so
Wearing like
someone else's telekung. Right, then you break your prayer. Right, you go and wash your nose drip.
so a nose strip is different from coughing blood, is it?
Unless you have some sort of disease lah. If it's like a one random event, it's not a disease. But if you're like really, in a disease situation, then it falls the same category as istihadah. It means continuous blood flow.
Blood, right? Let's say you have more tissue, right? And then if it touches your hand, can you just use a tissue and wipe your hand, or it's not?
You wipe it. Yeah. So depending on whether it's a disease or whether it's a one-off event. Huh? It's heavy. Then get medication. There's medication for it. Random, but there's medication for it, for nosebleed. For it, ask my mother. Yeah, ask my mother. Because it's not supposed to be normal. It's not supposed to be normal. So if it keeps happening, that means there's something that's yeah. So you can actually find the medication for it. So if a person has regular nose bleeding, they should actually look for medication, right? And how to cure it, because it's not a normal situation. All right. Okay. Wow. MashaAllah. All right. So we have 15 lessons from this one hadith. MashaAllah. All right. So we will pause there. Should we continue a bit more? Okay. Let me just read a few more. Right. See if I can just. If it's all fiqh, I'll just read through. Because fiqh should be straightforward, kan? Right. Spitting does not nullify the salah. Similarly, clearing one's throat does not nullify salah, provided that speech to the extent of 2 letters is not perceived or it does not overpower him. Okay, what does this mean? Right, spitting is fine. If you're going to spit during a prayer, it's fine. It does not break your prayer. Clearing your throat does not break your prayer unless in clearing it you pronounce 2 letters that are perceivable. Right, 2 Arabic letters. Okay, this is fiqh. It's not fiqh. It's not fiqh. You're wondering what is this? It's not fiqh. So, for example, if you clear your throat, you go. It's not a perceivable letter. If you go, okay. So now we go, right? You say an you say an right? So you have 2 letters perceivable. Your prayer, batal. So there is a there is a ha, and there is right? So if you really want to clear your throat, you're praying, you need to clear it in a way whereby it's not a perceivable letter, Arabic letter. Right? So if you just okay, don't say meme. Okay, you must not do the meme thing. Yeah, so that's not a letter. That's not an Arabic letter, right? Doesn't go on anybody, right? There's a growl, right? So that was okay. But if you're actually anything that you make of sounds in your prayer, if there's a perceivable Arabic letter in it, if it's more than 2, it breaks your prayer. 2 letters. Right? So for example, right, if you yawn and you go, and you make this loud sound, right? So ha, alif, 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 alif. You go, right, or however lah you yawn, right? And you make it a very loud sound, it actually breaks your prayer. So if you just yawn silently, it's fine.
But that's not purpose. But if you do it by accident, like you just got shot.
So that is not a letter, it's a letter.
So it must sound like an Arabic word.
No, not word. 2 letters in the Arabic alphabet.
Or like
That's 1 letter.
That's alif ha. Right.
Alif ha lah. Cannot 2 letters. Right, so you need to you need to control lah. Right, so even sneezing, right, if you go like ha-choo, right, so you ha-choo. You need to start not making sounds when you do all these things. You need to just, okay, don't do all these different sounds. Right, that's what he's saying here, right? So it's understood in the books of fiqh, right? If you make a sound, right, even if it's a natural sound, but if there's 2 Arabic letters in it, right, then that can nullify your prayer. Okay, it's not difficult. Just stifle things. Alright, so one should respect the direction of the Qibla. Right, you should not sit with your legs extended towards the Qibla. Right, that is bad adab. Right, you shouldn't be. It's also makruh to sit on the toilet facing the Qibla or backing the Qibla. Right, it is for a toilet that has walls around it. If you're in the wilderness on a desert and there's no walls around you and you are going to the toilet, right? Basically, a hole that you make in the ground, right? That you cannot face or back the Qibla. Okay, haram. Haram. Okay, so if there's no walls, for us, most of us, we have walls, right? So when there are walls, it's makruh. Makruh that you face or you back the Qibla. Right? So sometimes when we go to people's houses, it could be that actually the toilet bowl is placed in a way whereby it's right towards the Qibla. Right, so you need to make sure that, like for example, if your children are in the toilet, if the door is right in front, must close the door, so that you don't go into that don't have the disrespect for the Qibla. Okay, has to close it. Okay, because my brother's house lah, if you have been to my brother's house at Chai Chi, right? If you notice, the Qibla straight. If you go to the toilet in the kitchen, right, the toilet bowl is straight. I told him already. I told him, your toilet bowl is facing the Qibla, okay? Then he was like, but the toilet's so small. How to face it? Imam house, right? Yeah, Imam's house, his toilet bowl is facing the Qibla. I told him already. He was like, but the toilet's so small, what to do? No choice, but that is macro. So he goes into macro. Right? So if his kids go in, he needs to actually close the door. So they don't sit facing the Qibla, right, while they are excreting. Huh? Why? What's the problem, eh? Like I know in Tarim, like the whole of Tarim, you'll not find all the toilet bowls are 90 degrees to the Qibla. All of it. They always make it 90 degrees to the Qibla. So you in the toilet, you find that this toilet bowl is such a strange angle. It's because you're doing all 90 degrees to the Qibla. So even if you sit like saying it, you will not still face the Qibla. They're so particular about it. You have a question? Oh, sleeping. Yes, sleeping, your back towards the Qibla, makruh. Right, your feet towards the Qibla. If you are sick, then that's the way you actually sleep. Like if you're sick and you cannot be on your side, right, then your feet towards the Qibla, and you're going to pray that way also. But if you're fine, makruh. Makruh that you're sleeping your feet towards the Qibla. If you're not sick lah. And only when you're not able to sit on your side. Right. So respect for the Qibla. Right. So I remember there was once when I was in Syria, because there are a lot of non-Muslims in Syria. So they like to actually sit in the musalla to study, the non-Muslims. And they allow, because the musalla is not part of the masjid. It's actually outside the masjid. So they will always sit there and study. So once I remember there was a lady from the UK, because they learn Arabic in Syria. They go to Syria to learn Arabic and then they just go back. Right, so she was sitting in the masjid and she extended her feet towards the Qibla. Because the wall, you lean against the wall and you see your leg is go the straight towards the Qibla. So I was sitting there and I was like watching her. And I was like, her leg is facing towards the Qibla. Should I say something to her? Like, she's non-Muslim. And before I could do anything, this old Syrian lady, doesn't know a word of English. Syrian lady, old, Arab lady lah, comes there. Right, taps her on the shoulder, right, and she was like, then she was like, you can go it this way, you can go it this way, but not this way. And it's very sweet that you're smiling. So you see that they would even tegur and never know the language. They will still tegur. They will still point it out. You're not supposed to put it this way, okay? I don't know your language, you don't know my language, but I'm going to tell you. Like, you're going to go. And she was very sweet about it. So the person who was non-Muslim, she was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I said, fine, and I'll put my leg this way. And so she didn't even scold and cross your legs, why your legs straight out. Nothing, just like, just don't do it this way, okay? You want this way or this way, but not straight up, right, towards the Qibla.
So if you see makcik in the masjid doing that,
yeah, now quite a number. They just lick toward the Qibla.
yeah, do we, like, how their reaction will be like?
You can try nicely, right? Or you can bring your child and you can do the Hassan Hussein situation. So in Hassan and Hussein, whereby they saw an older man do wudu wrongly. And they wanted to inform him, but they were too shy because they're too young. So they had a plan that, Hassan and Hussein, that one of them will do the wrong thing. And then the other will come and correct him. Then they will argue in front of the man. Then they will turn to the man and ask the man who is correct. Right, so that means you can do it. You can have your child do it. It's like, and you come there loudly saying, "Hey, don't place your feet towards the Qibla, okay? It's not respectful." And let her hear loudly. Right, but otherwise, you can just go there and say, "Makcik, sorry, makcik, afwan, makcik, maaf, makcik. Kalau boleh, kaki kat sini, makcik. Ni kiblat, makcik. Sorry, makcik. Maaf, makcik." No lah, it's not. It's just bad adab. It's not sin. It's not a sin. It's bad adab. Right, so and maybe makcik tak perasan also. She notice. But whenever I talk to makcik, I will like, "Sorry, makcik. Sorry, makcik. Sorry, makcik." And so you sound so apologetic that the makcik cannot get angry with you. You're like, "I'm so sorry, makcik. I'm so sorry, makcik. I'm so sorry, makcik." But you must go. You say, "Makcik, sorry, makcik. You must pull this thing, makcik. Makcik, sorry." Ni aurat, makcik. Okay, makcik. Sorry, makcik. Then you smile, you laugh, you like try to not make it sound like a heavy reprimand. Right. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Sayyidina Muhammad. So I'm just going to finish this off. If a one has to spit, he should do it to his left side. He should not spit in front of him. I'll respect the Qibla, nor to his right. I'll respect his right side. Because the right side is the angel that writes down good deeds. Right? And then this rule applies even if one is out of the prayer. A person should spit to his left as long as there is nothing preventing him from doing so. Right? Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal, radiallahu anhu, he says, "I never spat to my right ever since I embraced Islam." Right? And spitting is not a good habit also. If you can, don't spit. Right? It's not a good habit unless you have phlegm. And you have to remove your phlegm. Right? Considering something that to be appealing or repulsive is on the basis of the Sharia. The right side has virtue over the left, the hand has virtue over the leg, and Friday has virtue over other days. So basically, tafdil, it's called tafdil. Tafdil, it means to prefer something over something else based on the Sharia, what the Sharia actually says. So the Sharia has elevated the right over the left, then we elevate the right over the left, right? So the Sharia has elevated Friday over other days, so we elevate Fridays over other days, right? So we elevate what the Sharia has elevated, and that is from the taqwa of the heart, from what the Quran says. Whosoever aggrandizes the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is from the taqwa of the heart, to aggrandize. So all these things like Qibla, all of these things for us to actually, aggrandize, right? So like even your sujadah, right? So like for me personally, our sujadas have no Kaaba on it, because even the picture of Kaaba not on the floor, right? And Kaaba has been raised. Right, so because sometimes they step on the Kaaba, the picture of the Kaaba is step on it. Right, so the word Muhammad, even in English, you don't actually have it on the floor, right? Or the word Allah, even in English writing, you don't have it just everywhere. You actually, you elevate it, right? And then when you fold your sujadah, you make sure you don't fold the feet onto the sujud area. Why? But you fold it. It's not haram, right? But it's an adab. So where you sujood, right, should be a place where it's respected, right? So you fold a sujood onto the sujood area itself, and you can roll it up, or you fold lengthwise. Right? So sujood onto sujood, and then you fold bits, right? So you have to fold from top to bottom. You can fold it down, right, in bits, right? It's so many ways to fold a sujadah. You don't have to go from feet to head, right? Straight away, you can actually do it in many ways. All right, I'm gonna pause there. Inshallah, next time we're going to continue. Alhamdulillah, this is the beautiful thing about hadith, mashallah. You can really just go on and on and on and on. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. في كل دبر على هاكر ولا سيدنا عشر من Allah illuminate our lives with the teachings of Rasulullah in his ways. الفاتحة. أن الله يرزقنا العلم النافع مخاص مبروس التعليم ودلالة على الهدى ويصلي بقول النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم وإلى أرواح معالمنا من مشايخنا وذوي الحقوق علينا وإلى حضر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا بالصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وسلم. والحمد لله رب العالمين.